So last question I like to ask all my guests is, in this world and in business, you have successes and failures are often looked at. Sometimes they're looked at bad, but I think when I look at failures, it's more of a stepping stone, or it's another way to get to a yes or to a success.
Right.
Do you have any stories about a failure that you went through that maybe led to something that you appreciate, or kind of your favorite failure?
I'll give my most recent failure that I actually did a video about it, because I'm trying to provide more. The TV shows, all they see is the flash, the cash, the fancy houses, and you start a show at 9 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock at night they've sold a $40 million house and they have $1 million check, right? Well, that's a lot of nonsense. That's not really how things work. So a couple of weeks ago, I've been working on a listing that was in the $60 million range for about a year and a half. Went to multiple meetings with trustees and lawyers for the listing. Was pretty sure I was getting it. And one of the owners lives in Brazil. And that morning, 6:30 in the morning, he texted me and says, we want to talk to you this morning about the listing. So I thought, oh my God. I said, I'm going to get the listing today. I was like, because usually if you're not getting a listing, they just send you an email, right?
Right.
But he says, I called him up. It was him and one of the trustees. I said, this is great. We're going to finalize the price and the terms. And I'd already shown the house to one of my buyers. And then we're on the phone and they were asking me these questions, and it just didn't sound right. And I said, have you listed the property? They said, yes, we did actually. And I'm like, and I thought to myself, why we just have a 20-minute conversation about the values, what's going on in the marketplace? It just didn't make. So I said, it took a second to breathe, and we ended the conversation nice. I said, and I asked, what price you listed for? They told me a little bit high. What's the length of term of the listing? It was a 5-month listing. I wanted a year. Commission, all little different structures.
Right.
So. Great, we ended up the call, so I got off the call. I called up my wife and I'm like, you won't believe it, I didn't get the listing, I can't believe it. So initially my human nature was like, you know what, it was early in the morning, it was like 9 o'clock. I said, screw the day, I'm just going to take the day off, go home, just decompress. And she's like, no, don't do that. And I was kind of upset, and she's like, send them a thank you note, which I always do. And I was in the mood at that moment, right? And I'm like, I don't even have his address in Brazil. It's always been phone calls, emails, so I don't have his physical address. And the other trustee, I don't have his address. So I said, you're right. She says, thank them for the opportunity. I said, think about it. How many people would love to even just have an opportunity to go even on a listing appointment like that?
Right.
And he called me out of the blue. I didn't know the guy, the seller. He just called me out of the blue. He'd seen me online. He liked me, and he called me. And so I said, you're right. And I know in this market today, quite often a listing will be on the market 4 or 5 times with different brokers before it ultimately sells. So I know in this market, I would much rather be the second, third, or fourth broker than the first.
Right.
Because I've been the first at times, and I didn't get the sale. Even a year later, and some houses can take, in the high end, can cost $120,000 out of your pocket to market for a year.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I totally changed my frame of mind. I let it go. I did 2 videos to them, and I emailed them thanking them for the opportunity. I said I was honestly a little bit disappointed. I said I'm a human being, but I wish you the best. I'm always here for you if you have any questions. I will certainly try and show it if I have a buyer. I have another buyer that's coming to town I want to show it to. I said I wish you the best of luck. If things don't work out, I'm always here for you. And I thanked them. I said I really appreciate the opportunity. So if nothing else, I was able to get it out of my head and release my anxiety and stress about it.
Right.
And let it go. So the faster you let go of disappointments and problems and things that happen that aren't the way you want and learn the lesson, the better off you are. Because when that door closes, a bigger, better one opens.
Absolutely.
And then there's a better opportunity.
And you never know if they might come back.
And it happens.
And
it happens.
They might.
Yeah. One of my good